Honorable Gajendra Ponnambalam, you can submit the question, but it has not been notified by you in advance to the leader of the House. Then you won't get the reply, but you can.
Honorable Speaker, yesterday when the Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena was in this chamber, I had it hand delivered to him. But the table office contacted me this morning saying that the leader of the House had not received it. I find that quite remarkable because it was hand delivered, and in fact the Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena acknowledged and waved at me when I hand delivered it.
Honorable Leader of the House will reply you on this question.
Honorable Speaker, there is a procedure to follow. The procedure has not been followed. Just because I get a document addressed to the Prime Minister, I can't take it unless the procedure is followed. If you want, you could give a ruling on it, but the member cannot just distribute a question and expect an answer. There is a procedure under 27(2). Yeah, no, it has to go through the.
Honorable member, you can submit it. You can read it and the reply will be given later.
No, because Honorable Speaker, you made the point that I had not followed the procedure because the Honorable Leader of the House had not received it. I got it hand delivered to the Honorable Leader of the House in this chamber and he acknowledged it. Not only that, I personally went to the Prime Minister's office because I have addressed the questions to the Honorable Prime Minister. I personally went to the Honorable Prime Minister's office and delivered it. There is nothing in the standing orders that tells me to do any of that. In fact, all I have to do is deliver it to the Secretary General, which I did in the morning personally. And on top of that, to keep the Honorable Leader of the Opposition informed, I hand delivered it to him also. So I can't understand how much more I can do. If the point that is being made is that I should not be giving it to the Honorable Leader of the House, rather to his office, I find that quite preposterous. But anyway, I will make the statement and ask the questions. I think it's quite obvious that the government doesn't want to respect me in answering the question today, but that's quite all right. Let me at least make the
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
We'll respect any member, the correct procedure followed, sir. This letter has been addressed to the Secretary General. Please, if the Honorable Speaker gives a ruling allowing the member, that is a different matter, but please follow the correct procedure.
It has to be handed over to the Leader of the Opposition in advance.
No. This is
Leader of the House. Leader of the House, sorry. No, that's what I told him. That's why you ask the question and the reply would be given later.
No, but the Honorable Speaker must not. It's quite disrespectful. The Honorable Chief Opposition.
No, that was how I was informed.
The Honorable Speaker is making the allegation that I have not followed procedure.
It is not an allegation.
Sir, let me just tell you. Section 27(2) says this: the Secretary General shall, upon receipt of any notice in respect of any question, unless the Speaker rules any question out of order. So I only have to hand it over to the Secretary General. No. Section 27(1) also says that it has to be handed over to the Secretary General. There is nothing here that says that I have to do anything towards the Leader of the House.
You have not read the second part of it. Provided that any question relating to a matter of urgent public importance may be asked by the Leader of the Opposition or Leader of a recognized political party at a conclusion of questions after due notice has been given to the minister concerned.
To the?
You read it further. Standing orders. 27(2).
And that is why I say, Honorable. Honorable Speaker, I hand delivered the Section 27(2) question to the Prime Minister's office because that is whom I'm asking.
It's okay, Honorable Member. No, why not? Why we waste time? So you had better submit your question. Then later he will give you the answer.
Yeah, but then those statements must not be made, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah.
We also
but
can understand
anyway,
how to
the fact remains. Anyway, the fact remains that it had not been handed over yesterday. That's all.
It was handed over in the morning.
Yeah, that's right. So that is what
It was
exactly I
handed
said.
over in the morning. I
Yeah.
personally handed it over. How can you say that I didn't
Yeah.
hand it over, Honorable Speaker?
Honourable Speaker, the
Yes.
Leader of the Opposition and other members, other leaders of parties, they are allowed to ask the 27-2 question. Now, there are two ways of channeling the question. One way is to go through the Leader of the Opposition office. The second is the individual party leaders have the right to forward their questions themselves. Now, questions that have to be raised today and replied today have to be handed over in the previous day, before 12 noon.
Correct.
That's the procedure. So, I believe Honorable Ponnambalam had taken the liberty of handing over the question by himself, which he has a right to do. So I don't think we need to waste time now that we are quite aware of the relevant procedures. Let him raise the question,
Exactly what I
and
said.
then the government can decide
Yes, right.
on providing the answer.
Yes. So go ahead with it.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Whereas the World Health Organization's advice dated 24/3/2020 on infection prevention and controls for the safe management of a dead body in the context of COVID-19 clearly noted that, and I quote, people who have died from COVID-19 can be buried or cremated, close quote, and specifically stressed that the dignity of the dead, their cultural and religious traditions, and their families should be respected and protected during the pandemic crisis. And whereas adhering to the said advice of the WHO, the Ministry of Health guidelines on the 27th of March 2020 allowed relatives to see the bodies at the hospital and also permit burial of the dead bodies. And whereas the said government guidelines were amended and the provisional clinical guidelines on COVID-19 and confirmed patients dated the 31st March 2020 instructs that the bodies of those dead by COVID-19, and I quote, should be cremated within 24 hours, open brackets, preferably within 12 hours, close brackets, close quotes, without providing adequate or reasonable justification for departing from the WHO guidelines. And whereas in a letter to His Excellency the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on the 8th of April 2020, 4 UN Special Rapporteurs urged to reconsider the provisions of the Ministry of Health guideline by taking into account of the key considerations provided by the WHO guideline for the disposal of the bodies of human beings deceased from COVID-19, and revise the circular accordingly, and goes on to state, in view of the challenges posed by the pandemic, it is important that the government avoids any unnecessary measures that are likely to raise tensions and are running contrary to the respect of the fundamental human rights of the persons belonging to different communities that exist in Sri Lanka. Arbitrary decisions concerning the disposal of bodies of victims of the COVID-19 may also have the opposite effect of provoking the reluctance of families and communities to report COVID-19 cases in fear that they may unable to ensure proper funeral or burial rights for their loved ones. Ideally, such provisions should be revised in consultation with all concerned ethnic and religious communities and other relevant health experts and stakeholders, close quote. And whereas though the Constitution of Sri Lanka does not explicitly recognize the right to life, it has been held in the case of Ratnayaka Tharanga Lakmari versus Niroshan Abekun that Article 11, which is freedom from torture, read with Article 13(4), which is freedom from arbitrary punishment, recognizes by necessary implication a right to life. The court advanced this argument in the said case, stating that the Constitution is a living document and should not be construed in a narrow and pedantic manner. The court referred to the values embodied in the Constitution, one of which is the dignity and well-being of the people, as well as Sri Lanka's obligations under various international treaties in reinforcing the right to life. And whereas in the same breath, Article 21 of the Indian Constitution has ensured right to life and a dignified life under Article 21 as a fundamental right, and the Supreme Court through various cases has held that the right to dignity, fair treatment under Article 21 is not only available to the living man, but also his body after his death. The Apex Court had in Permanand Katara versus Union of India held, and I quote, the word and expression person in Article 21 would include a dead person in a limited sense, and that his right to his life, which includes his right to live with human dignity, to have an extended meaning, to treat his dead body with respect, which he would have deserved had he been alive, subject to his tradition, culture, and the religion which he professed. The state must respect a dead person by allowing the body of that dead person to be treated with dignity, close quote. And whereas in the recent case of Pradeep Gandhi versus the state of Maharashtra, the court, by giving reference to the said decision in the earlier quoted case, held that the right to dignity and fair treatment under Article 21 of the Constitution is not only available to a living man, but also to his body after his death, and quote, right to a decent burial commensurate with the dignity of the individual is recognized as a facet of the right to life guaranteed under Article 21 of the Constitution. There is thus no reason as to why an individual who dies during this period of crisis because of suspected or confirmed COVID-19 infection would not be entitled to the facilities he or she would have otherwise been entitled to but for the crisis, the court said in its order. And whereas the new interim guidelines for infection prevention and safe management of dead bodies in the context of COVID-19 released by the World Health Organization on September 4th, 2020, notes that based on current knowledge of the symptoms of COVID-19 and its main modes of transmission, droplet stroke contact, the likelihood of transmission when handling human remains is low, and that families can hold funerals in accordance with local customs and standards, and bodies can be buried or cremated according to family preferences. And whereas the UN resident coordinator in Sri Lanka, in her letter to the Honourable Prime Minister, urged the Sri Lankan government to allow the safe and dignified burial of COVID-19 victims on the basis that common assumptions that people who died of a communicable disease should be cremated to prevent spread is not supported by evidence. Instead, cremation is a matter of cultural choice and available resources. According to the World Health Organization guidelines, people who have died from COVID-19 can therefore be buried or cremated according to local standards and family preferences, with appropriate protocols for handling the body. And whereas Muslim religious norms do not permit cremation, and the amended regulation has caused great distress within the community, and as in Islam, fire is connected with hell, and burning the dead is seen as punishment, it is of utmost importance that the bereaved families are treated with sensitivity, dignity, and respect. And recognizing that the grieving process and related formal and informal rituals through which the bereaved mourn the passing of loved ones are important for the health and well-being of the bereaved and especially for Sri Lanka's Muslim and Christian communities. In these circumstances, we ask the Honourable Prime Minister, who has stood unflinchingly for the rights of global Muslim population from his most formative years in politics to date, and who has taken great pride in identifying himself with the Christian religion in the past, why is it that his government is acting in this most arbitrary manner on this most sensitive matter faced by these very same religious minorities of this country? We ask the Honourable Prime Minister, what is it that prevents this government, even at this late hour, from changing its present course and doing the right thing by Sri Lanka's religious minorities in allowing burials as being practiced by over 190 countries in the world? Thank you.